Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Joseph Parker's promoter Duco Events has confirmed there is some interest for a fight with Derek Chisora in April. And this was floated by Eddie Hearn talking to Boxing Social, saying that he would like to make Derek Chisora and Joseph Parker on the undercard of Dillian Whyte's next fight, April 20th at the O2. Whyte's prospective opponent, potentially Dominic Breazeale. Other names of Luis Ortiz and Alexander Povetkin have been mentioned for that date. And Hearn talked about wanting to make a sort of heavyweight card, different fights that he mentioned, Chisora and Parker, also putting Dave Allen and Lucas Brown on that bill. That fight's already been confirmed, so that's where it would live if they go ahead with that card. And also potentially Michael Hunter and Carlos Takam. There was some talk of that before Christmas, and I'll get to that later. But let's focus on the Joseph Parker stuff first, because mention of a Parker and Chisora fight, it's a decent fight, and Joseph Parker has been looking to get back to the UK. They've been looking at options in recent months. So Parker, if he wants to return to the UK, Derek Chisora could be there for him. And in a statement from Duco Events, I approached them yesterday when this news came out, and they've come back to me today saying, yep, we're looking at it. David H. put a couple of options in front of Joe last night. I'm not sure what his response was. And also, David Higgins, he's been talking to Sky Sports. So see on screen here. Joseph Parker open to a potential fight with Derek Chisora, confirms promoter David Higgins. So that obviously follows on from what I was just saying from the Duco statement. So Higgins says, like most top heavyweights, Joseph will be willing to fight anyone. I see Eddie Hearn mentioning Chisora publicly. If the deal was right, then sure enough, Joseph certainly will not back away from anyone. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. There's been one email from Eddie, no detailed discussion whatsoever. As I say, Joseph would be willing to step in with anyone, provided it's the right terms. I'm hoping to speak to Eddie this week. And that's pretty much the sum total. Oh no, a little bit more here. Yes, he's had a very good off-season. He's kept in shape, and so this is of Parker and his condition. Probably the best I've seen him, so he's ready to get into camp as soon as the right deal is put in place. David Higgins talking to Sky Sports. So there has been an initial approach from Eddie Hearn regarding Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora. And I actually do quite like this fight, because I think this is a very winnable fight for Joseph Parker. I think Derek Chisora, his best days are gone, and I was saying this ahead of the Dillian Whyte fight. I don't think David Haye can really eke any more out of Derek Chisora, just because there's too many miles on the clock now. He is still a decent level fighter, but he's beatable. And he's been beaten 9 times now. So Dillian Whyte knocked him out in the 11th round. And I think for Joseph Parker returning to the UK, he lost to Dillian Whyte. He lost to Anthony Joshua in 2018. Derek Chisora is a name that's still got a lot of name recognition. Fans like Chisora. He's got a reasonably fan-friendly style. He's been involved in some cracking fights in the last year or two. Obviously, Chisora won back at the end of 2016. Very entertaining fight. And then this rematch with Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora was really putting it on Dillian Whyte, and he was up on 2 of the 3 cards at the time of the stoppage. And that was a pretty brutal knockout. So, obviously, if he wears down, he can be taken out. But Derek Chisora in his career has shown, he's got a pretty decent chin. And Joseph Parker is not noted as the biggest puncher in the heavyweight division. So it'd be a very interesting matchup for me for a number of reasons. But I think we would see Joseph Parker potentially, if he was to fight Derek Chisora, do a better version of what Dillian Whyte was trying to do. Because Whyte didn't fight that sort of normal rock'em sock'em sort of style that he'd shown in that first fight with Chisora. He was giving Derek Chisora some movement. He was relying on his boxing. He was trying to outthink and outlast Derek Chisora, wear him down and take him out. Ultimately, he did. You may recall, I think it was round 1, he landed a significant, I think it was a right hand, and Chisora seemed ready for the taking at that point, but he didn't pounce on him, and he didn't seem to take some opportunities that he otherwise would have in previous fights, but ultimately he got the rounds in, he got the job done, and Dillian Whyte came away with a pretty spectacular knockout, one of the knockouts of 2018. So Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora, I do like that potential matchup. And I think the Chisora who came in against Dillian Whyte, that guy is still a bit of a handful, but he's also still beatable. But I think Joseph Parker, working off the back foot, working in spots and bursts, because this is what he really does. Joseph Parker doesn't really work for 3 minutes of a round. He probably would be able to, rack up a few rounds here, but he would have to win rounds decisively, because he has been involved in fights before where, it's kind of a bit of a coin toss who the round goes to. And as we saw, Derek Chisora, if he's coming forward, applying pressure and having success, he can win rounds like he did against Dillian Whyte. But I do like the fight, but I do wonder, is money going to be a barrier here? Because this would be an undercard fight. And we know Derek Chisora coming off, that fight against Dillian Whyte, it was a pay-per-view event. He would have got a pretty nice payday for that one. He will have certain expectations about what he will be wanting for his purse. And Joseph Parker, who's obviously been a champion, he's fought Anthony Joshua for several million. He's fought Dillian Whyte on pay-per-view for a 7-figure payday as well. Is an undercard, is that going to generate enough coin for Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora to take the fight? And this is sort of what I worry about, this fight not getting made, just because, the main event's going to suck up a big portion of the available purse, but then you have Dave Allen and Lucas Brown. No doubt that there will be some money tied up in that as well. It's more than just sort of, undercard fodder. Those guys will have a certain expectation about what they're getting, and if it's already been decided on the money for fighting each other, that takes away from the potential pot that Parker and Chisora could have access to. So this could be the right fight for Joseph Parker to come back to the UK and have a good performance, look good, and try to get a win against Derek Chisora. But is it makeable just because of the money side? And David Higgins sort of alluded to that as well. I'll just go back to his comments here. If the deal was right, then sure enough. And also, as I say, Joseph will be willing to step in with anyone, provided it's the right terms. And that's the sort of caveat here. I'm willing to take the fight if the deal is right. And I just wonder, is there going to be enough money in the pot there to make that fight? Because I think a fight with Michael Hunter and Carlos Takam, if you were to look at that, probably their expectations in terms of being compensated for their time is probably going to be at a lower level than Chisora and Parker, who've recently been on pay-per-view. And Parker was on pay-per-view back in New Zealand in December, so he has those options to come back to if the deal's not right in the UK. He can have a fight in New Zealand on pay-per-view and, still get a decent amount of money. And I guess it's sort of going to come down to a bit of a trade-off here, because if they take shorter money for this fight, Parker can go in, look good, take on Derek Chisora, beat him. Then obviously that's going to be good for his profile and working his way back into big fights in the United Kingdom. And he wants a Dillian Whyte rematch. And if he beats Chisora, a common opponent, well, that will get him a step closer. But clearly, Duco Events is not just looking at this Chisora fight and the Chisora fight only. David Higgins said before Christmas they were considering all options, the United States, the UK, and even another fight back in New Zealand on pay-per-view. And just from that statement that Duco provided me, David H. put a couple of options in front of Joe last night. So clearly there's not just the Chisora, option. It's not Chisora or bust. There is other potential fights out there for Joseph Parker that they are actively considering right now. And even if they had nothing in front of Parker at the moment, I'm sure they wouldn't say that publicly anyway. But he does have the option, if they don't like the deals, the offers that are out there for United States fights or UK fights, to have something back in New Zealand. But now that Joseph Parker has had that comeback win against Alexander Flores, let's face it, there was a tune-up to some degree. There will be less leniency for the next fight. They can't just wheel out another Alexander Flores type opponent who was about 175th or so on BoxRec at the time of that fight. It needs to be someone better. And is there anyone that's sort of top 50 or top 60 that's available right now that they could wheel into some sort of pay-per-view event in New Zealand? Because that's what they'll be looking at, the trade-off of who can we get, what can we make, as opposed to, these offers overseas where they're just accepting a date on a card, they get their check and they walk away off into the sunset afterwards. And these are the things they'll be weighing up. It's a business after all, and they have a responsibility to Parker to maximise his earnings while he's in the sport. And he said, 27 now, that he only wants to be in the sport until he's about 30, 31. So there's not too much time left in Joseph Parker's career. From what the indications are, he wants to retire at an early age while he's still got some faculties. He wants to have another run at a heavyweight title. And yeah, they won't just be taking short money just because Eddie Hearn offers a Chisora fight up. And even then, Chisora and David Haye, if Chisora is in fact still working with David Haye, they will drive a tough bargain as well. So who knows what fishhooks could be on that side as well. Anyway, there is some interest for that fight, but for the right deal. But if it's not Derek Chisora and a return to the UK, who will it be? Remember, Junior Farr, that option is out off the table at the moment. Farr's got his own fight coming up in March. Lucas Brown, he's taking on Dave Allen, so it's not like you can make that. So a potential couple of other options that were sort of sloshing around a month or two ago are off the table now. So who could it be? Is it time to go back to the United States? Parker had a couple of early fights in his career there. Could he go back, do something there? I'm sure there could be a place on DAZN for him. I'm sure he could get a fight within PBC or Top Rank. And I'm not sure of the status of that deal with Top Rank that they used to have. I think that expired the end of last year. I'll probably actually check in with Duka on that. But if it's still in place, a Top Rank fight with on one of their cards, that could be an attractive option as well. But all of that also comes down to money. So it's not as easy as just sort of saying, fight this guy, because that really actually happens. But in respect of Carlos Takam and Michael Hunter, I like that fight. Hunter wouldn't take that for December 22nd, 2018 on a month's notice because he wanted more time to actually prepare for that. So if they do end up making that, I like that fight. I think that could be a very competitive fight, and Hunter could actually win that. Carlos Takam, my view, is on the slide now. Even though he's been posting quite, frequently on social media, Instagram in particular, him with his old belts and that sort of stuff, all of that's gone now. He is looking all of his 38 years old now. We saw that in that Senad Gashti fight. So I think he's there for the taking. I think that could be a good win for Michael Hunter if they can get that fight made. I think he could look very good in that fight. Anyway, drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.